All right, we're going to try to take a look at number 25 on page 157. We're graphing again. This time, however, it is the secant function. As always, we start off by finding the period of the function. Now, since secant is the reciprocal of cosine, we find the period the same way as we find the period of the cosine, which is to do 2 pi over the omega value. Remember that omega is the coefficient in front of the x. And that means that in this case, the period is 2 pi over 1, or just 2 pi. Remember that we then take that and divide it by 4 to come up with our x scale, to figure out how much we go up by when we're trying to make our table, to find the 5 key points of our graph. So if we take 2 pi divided by 4, we figure out that we're going to be going up by pi over 2 for each of our steps. Once again, at this point, we are not doing any sort of horizontal shifting, so we will start at 0 when we make our table. As I said, we're going up by pi over 2, so 0 plus pi over 2 is pi over 2. If I add another pi over 2, I end up with pi. Pi plus pi over 2 is 3 pi over 2. And then finally, 3 pi over 2 plus pi over 2 is 2 pi. That gives us the x values. From there, we can take a look at the the unit circle to figure a couple of things out. So remember, the secant ratio on the unit circle is 1 over x. And that means that when we go to the unit circle and we're looking at 0, we can see an x coordinate of 1. So 1 over 1 is 1. However, remember, it was 2 times the secant, so we don't actually want 1. We want 2. From there, we can go to pi over 2 on the unit circle. Again, we're thinking 1 over x. That means that we're looking at 1 over 0. The problem is that 1 over 0 is undefined. And just like in other graphs that we've done so far, that undefined means that it is going to be a vertical asymptote. From there, we can move on to pi. At pi, you can see the x-coordinate is -1. So if we do 1 over -1, we get -1. But remember, we're multiplying by 2, so we end up with -2 as the y-coordinate at that point. Moving on to 3 pi over 2, we can see at the bottom there that the x-coordinate is 0. So once again, we're back to this idea of having something that is undefined, which turns out to be a vertical asymptote again. Finally, going all the way around the circle, we get back to 2 pi, and the x-coordinate there is 1. That means that we're doing 1 over 1 times 2, which is 2. Now, honestly, those 3 points that are there don't show us much in the way of what our graph should look like. It is really, really helpful to remember what the cosine graph looks like, and remember that this is the reciprocal of that cosine graph. So if we were to go through and graph the cosine function, it would look like that. And if we were to do the reciprocal of every single point on that entire function, then we end up with something that looks like this. And that is y equals 2 times the secant of x when we graph it.